Simply Cooking by MmmChef is brought to you in part by CPI Interiors. A great kitchen starts with a great design. Get that custom home interior you dream of. At CPI Interiors, we listen and beautiful happens.
Hello and welcome to Simply Cooking by MmmChef. I'm Daniela Croco and I'm a holistic chef. I take traditional and classic recipes and turn them into nutrient-dense and simple eats. I'm going to be talking about reducing waste in the kitchen. I'm all about being sustainable and economical when it comes to reusing ingredients, saving ingredients, and being affordable and also reducing the impact on our planet. Stay tuned. I'm all about making sure that we don't waste things and throw things in the garbage that are unnecessary. I love my local bulk store so that I can bring my own jars and my own containers and use my own packaging so that I'm not wasting plastic. I actually sell a couple of my products at Ottawa's only zero waste grocery store called New Grocery, and I love to go there because it allows me to buy exactly what I need without having to waste extra. One of my favorite things to do to help reduce waste in the kitchen is by making a fridge soup. And when I say a fridge soup, that's exactly what I mean. At the end of the week, I go into my fridge and I find a whole bunch of leftover things and I turn them into a soup. I like to keep my bones from roasted chickens, and I also like to keep all of my cut ends off and things like that. And so today I'm going to be making a fridge soup for you. I'm going to turn around and see what I've got going on in my fridge. I've got celery, carrots, and this really sad looking cabbage. I've got onions and garlic all chopped up that are kind of looking sad. So at the beginning when I do grocery shopping and I come home from the store, I like to pre-chop my onions and garlic in a jar to have them ready to go. But sometimes during the week I don't get to them in time and they start to go a little bit sad. So that's why I like to use all these sad vegetables in soup. I call them sad, but really I'm going to turn them into something happy. Another great way to be economical and to save things from going into the landfill is to actually buy the reduced produce at the grocery store. A lot of people are afraid of that because they think, ooh, they don't want to spend money on something that's gone bad. But I love to go to the reduced produce section and pick things that I'm going to use right away. Not only does it save money for me, but it also actually saves the food from going into the landfill. I do the same thing with animal products and reduced meats. A really great trick is to go into a grocery store an hour after they open or an hour before they close. When they're putting all of the meat and all of the produce on reduced pricing is usually at those times. Then I can get things like grass-fed beef and organic chicken and all these awesome other high-quality ingredients at a reduced price. And not only for that, but I'm saving them going from the landfill. Sometimes when I am cooking a whole chicken, I think about how I'm thankful for this animal, and so I wouldn't want to see a reduced chicken in the grocery store being thrown in the garbage. I feel obligated to buy it sometimes. So if you ever came over to my house and you opened my freezer, you would find a whole bunch of reduced produce and reduced meat. So I've cleaned up these carrots that were quite soft, and I'm going to clean up this celery as well. I'm going to turn on my pot and get it going so it can get nice and hot for me. I grew up Italian, and I was taught to use every part of the animal and use every last piece of things in the kitchen. A lot of people throw away the tops of these celeries, and I keep them. I keep everything. I keep all this stuff. Even though I've just cut off all this stuff that a normal person would throw in the garbage, I'm actually going to set it to the side and I'm going to put it in the freezer in a Ziploc later. And that way I can use it for stock or to flavor dishes at a later time. And I also just mentioned a Ziploc. Ziploc is plastic, and we really try to stay away from plastic as much as possible. You see, I have all these mason jars that I love to store stuff in. Old tomato sauce jars, old jam jars. I don't throw them away. I love to reuse them to store other things. But plastic sometimes is unavoidable. So what I love to do is reuse it. So the Ziploc bag that I have in the freezer with all of my fruit and veggie cut-off ends is actually a Ziploc bag that was used for something else, and I've washed it out quite a few times. All right. I've got this onion and this garlic that I had chopped at the beginning of the week. I'm going to add some oil to my pan. And because I chopped this almost a week ago, I'm going to get it all in there and use all of it up. Then I'm going to give my celery and my carrots just a rough chop. Something I love to do when I come home from the grocery store is I actually wash and prep all of my vegetables before I put them into the fridge. I've washed these carrots about a week ago, even though they look sad, and I gave the celery a really good wash also before I put it in the fridge. This way, when I am in a rush and on the go, I really just have to grab and go. Maybe I should do them separately. It's a big pile. My onion and garlic is sizzling. I can hear it. And what I love about fridge soups is I really just do a really, really rough chop of everything. And then at the end, I put it in the blender with some coconut milk or some regular milk, whoever I'm cooking for, depending what their dietary needs are. And I give it a lovely blend, and I have a really creamy and delicious soup. And it doesn't really matter what's in there because all of the flavors kind of marry each other and meld together. I'm going to do the same thing with this little cabbage and give it a quick rough chop and get it in the pot. And like always, I like to season every layer, so I'm going to give this a good salting. And I'm going to grab a wooden spoon and give it a good stir. And just let that go. I always have chicken bones and veggies in the freezer, so every couple weeks I make a big batch of stock, whether it's chicken stock or beef stock or just veggie stock. It really depends on what I've made the previous few weeks. So I'm going to grab my pre-made veggie stock out of the fridge and add that to my pot. Oh my, that's on there tight. Break the seal. Yeah. Look at that. I want to get all that flavor and all that fat in there too. No wasting at this place. All right. Now I'm going to let that come to a simmer and bubble up and get all the flavors mixed together. And I'm also going to grab some fresh herbs that I bought on discount earlier. I've got cilantro, I've got parsley, and I've got some basil in the corner as well. I'm going to get these all cleaned up and chopped up on my board, and I'm going to clean up and we're going to take a break, and when we come back I'm going to show you what I'm going to turn these sad discounted herbs into. We'll see you after the break.
This program is brought to you in part by CPI Interiors, designing customized home spaces for all tastes and budgets for over 20 years. At CPI Interiors, we listen and beautiful happens.
All right, so my soup is on the stove and about to start simmering, and I grabbed the 2 bunches of discounted herbs that I got at the store earlier. As you can see, they kind of look sad. I'm just gonna chop the ends off because I've got my freezer veggie cut-off bag out, and so I'm gonna put those stems right in the bag with the cut-offs from the veggies that I cut up earlier for my soup. And this way, nothing gets wasted. So these herbs are really neat. Something that I got taught when I was young is that we don't waste anything. So at the end of a summer season, when you have an abundance of herbs, or when you have herbs that are going bad and you're not sure what to do with them, there's no need to waste. There's a little bit extra stem on here that I'm just gonna get rid of. All right. I'm gonna throw this back in the freezer. All right, so what I'm gonna do with these herbs is I'm gonna chop them up as fine as possible. And I've got this leftover garlic that I had, this jar was full earlier in the week, but we're at the end of it. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create these herb patties. And what I mean by herb patties, I'm gonna create these little tiny balls of herbs mixed with garlic and oil and salt. And then we're gonna put them on this parchment, on this pan, all separated. And then I'm gonna throw them in the freezer. And then once they're frozen, I'm gonna put them all in the same container so that on a busy night of the week when I wanna make something super flavorful, all I have to do is grab a ball out of the fridge or freezer and throw it into my pan, and I've got lots of flavor going. I'm gonna give my board a quick wipe because as you see, there's a little bit of dirt on it. We wanna get rid of that. I grew up eating garden vegetables right out of the garden. I'm not afraid of a little dirt, and there's actually a lot of B12 and great minerals and vitamins in our soil. Not in our factory farming soil, but in our own backyard and in our own garden. It's okay to eat things that haven't been washed completely, especially if they've come from your own garden. Okay, back to the chopping. I'm gonna empty this garlic right into the bowl. It's already chopped and ready for me. And then with the herbs, I'm not going to do the whole thing for you. I'm just going to do half of it, and I'll do the other half later, just so that I can show you what I'm trying to achieve. I'm going to run my knife through these herbs as many times as possible and get them as small as possible. If you have a mini food processor, you can use that too. But I find chopping sometimes is quite relaxing, and I really enjoy taking the time and getting to smell the waft of the herbs as I'm cutting through them. All I can smell right now is cilantro and the strong, pungent parsley and the garlic. It's quite overwhelming in a good way. Look at that. It's as small as it'll go. Something else I love to talk about is I love to reuse things. So I can dry these herbs and make potpourri. You can save the peels off of your lemons, your limes, and your oranges, and you can actually simmer them on the stove with a little bit of water and vanilla, and it will make your house smell amazing. You can also take those same citrus peels and put them in the oven at a really low setting, and you can dehydrate them, and then you can fill old socks with them and then put them in your sock drawers as a lovely fragrance. What else do I love to do? I'm going to form these into balls, but what you can also do is you can actually use an ice cube tray to do the same thing. Today I'm using the cilantro and the parsley and garlic, but you can really do this with so many things. My Nona does it with celery and garlic and onion, and she has these little balls ready to go when she's making soup. And you can really do it with so many things. Now I'm going to add the olive oil because I want it to be nice and sticky. And a little bit of salt. Just going to pour some in there. All right. A little bit of fresh herb flavor in my soup using the same spoon. That's okay. Reducing waste also means reducing water consumption. So the least amount of dishes that I have to wash, the least amount of water that I'm going to use, which is also good for the planet. This delicious herbs are gonna make the soup taste good. So I'm just gonna put that spoon right back in there. All right, now that's really sticky and really ready to go. But first I'm just gonna show you a couple things that I love to use. I've got these wax wraps. If you've watched some of my episodes before, you may have seen these. I love to wrap food with these. They're made out of a beeswax, and they are reusable and washable. They fold really nicely. and they're natural. And when I'm done with them, and once they've gotten like they don't stick anymore, I throw them into my compost bin, and they compost really nicely because they're made out of natural ingredients. I'm gonna wrap those extra herbs that I'm gonna turn into patties later after the show in this wax paper. What's also great about the wax paper is, unlike plastic, it actually breathes. So when storing things like herbs or pieces of cheese in it, it actually gives it a little bit breathability, which makes things go bad less fast. I'm gonna throw this in the fridge. Give my soup a good stir. All right. Now let me show you how we make the little herb patties. Now, because they're really, really messy, you get it everywhere, but that's okay. Patties or balls or pucks or whatever you want to call it. The reason I'm freezing them like this is so that they don't touch. Then once they're fully frozen, I'll take them out of the freezer and they'll be solid. And then I can throw them all into a bag or into a container so that they don't touch each other. And when I need to use one, it's really easy to grab it right from the freezer. You don't need to defrost it or anything, so you can add it right into your frying pan. What's another great trick about stuff like that is you can do the same thing with leftover wine, leftover vinegars, or leftover sauces. I often have an ice cube tray in my freezer that's half full with red wine and half full with white wine, and maybe has a couple ice cubes also of balsamic and things like that. This way, you're not wasting the end of your bottle or the end of your jar. And then when you're cooking dinner later in the week, you can deglaze your pan with an ice cube or two of red wine, or you can use the balsamic to add flavor to a stir fry or something like that. I really don't like to waste anything. All right. I've got a couple more patties in this bowl to put together, but my hands are really messy. So I'm gonna finish this up, give my hands a really good wash, taste my soup, and if the vegetables are soft, I'm gonna give them a blend, and we'll see you after the break. So I got all cleaned up and I put my little herb patties in the freezer on that pan so they can get nice and frozen. And I blended my soup, which I'm just gonna add to the pot here. Excellent. Earlier in the week, I used a can of coconut cream to make some quinoa breakfast bowls, but I had some left over, so I put it in this jar. So I'm gonna add that to my soup to make it nice and creamy. But you don't need to add that if you don't have it. If you do eat real dairy, you can use cream or milk, or you can just leave it out completely. Or you could actually even shred up some little ends of the cheeses that you might have in the back of your fridge and add them into the soup with a whisk and whisk it really, really well, and you'll have like a cheesy soup as well. All right, so while my soup gets nice and hot, while I wait for it to come up to a simmer, I'm gonna show you some other great ideas. So bananas. Bananas can be thrown in the freezer when they're like this, and then you can use them to make banana bread, muffins. You can use them in smoothies and things like that. You can also take it up another level, and you can peel the banana completely and chop it up into actual pieces and put it into a container in the freezer, so you have them ready to grab and throw into a smoothie, or even to top a breakfast bowl or ice cream or something like that. I never let my bananas go to waste, and I always have a dozen or so bananas in the freezer at any given time. Every week I like to boil eggs and have them ready for me. And I'm just gonna show you these really wonderful little bags. A local woman here makes these, but I'm sure you can find them wherever you happen to be. They look like, almost like pencil cases, but what's really neat about them is that they're lined inside with food grade waterproof material. And they can actually be put right into your dishwasher or into your washing machine. and you use them just like you would a plastic zip bag. So, so boiled eggs can go right in here, veggies and dip, or you can even use it to pack your sandwich for lunch. And what I love about them is the different sizes. So if you don't want your sandwich to go soggy, for example, you could put your bread in here, you could put your toppings and your lettuce or whatnot in the smaller one, and then you could have a little jar with your dip or your mayo or whatever you are, so that by the time you get to your lunch, you don't have a soggy sandwich. And touching on a soggy sandwich, the same thing goes for these really, really neat containers. I got these at my local No Waste store, but you probably have something similar at the grocery store near you, or you can even make it up by adding your own little pieces of parchment paper in between the food in the container. So this container itself has all the compartments ready for you, which is really neat. You can put your bread in the bottom, and then your toppings up here, so that when you go to have lunch, your sandwich isn't soggy and you can assemble it right there for you. Or if you don't have a fancy container like this, you can take some parchment paper and put it in between your bread and your toppings and all of that stuff, so that the paper keeps everything separated and from going soggy. Parchment paper is another one of those no waste things that I really love to use. I love to line disposable pans with it, because then you can get 5, 6, 7, even a dozen uses out of a disposable pan that you may not have otherwise. You may have had to throw it out otherwise. And I also love to use it to line my cooking pans with, because then it's an easier cleanup and I can just throw it right into the compost. It's really, really great. Oh, look at that. The herbs that I chopped earlier are all over my board and they have stained it yellow. Well, something else that I like to do, how I mentioned earlier that I keep my lemon peels and my citrus peels, sometimes I keep the butts of my lemon. And why I do that is because it's great for cleaning. I've got a little bit of salt here, and I've got this lemon. And the acidity and the abrasiveness of the salt are really just taking and helping to take the green off of my board. You can see that the juice itself is getting a green tint. All you need is a little bit of elbow grease. Look at some of the green has even come right off onto my lemon peel. How neat is that? When not on TV, I would do this round about 3 or 4 times, and then the board would be completely clean. And then what I love to do is I actually love to use vinegar as a cleaning solution. I don't go to the store and buy all of these expensive cleaning solutions or these expensive natural cleaners. I actually fill a spray bottle halfway with vinegar and halfway with water, and it does such a wonderful job of disinfecting. And not only is it safe for my pets and for me, but it's also much safer for the planet and for the environment. Oh, the soup looks like it is coming together. Just grab this bowl. Yum. And look at that, a fridge soup. A soup from all the things that I had left over in the fridge. I'm gonna give it a nice little drizzle of olive oil, a little sprinkle of salt, and I'm just going to set this to the side because it's a little bit too hot to touch. I am often at New Grocery here in Ottawa at Canada's first no-waste grocery store, giving talks just about these subjects, about how to reduce waste in the kitchen, about how to reuse ingredients in a new way, and about how to save energy, water, and all of those things while cooking. It's something that I'm really passionate about. All of the containers that I use are always compostable, biodegradable, or glass, and all of the packaging that I like to use is either something that you can reuse 100 times or more, or it's something that I have chosen to reuse from something else that was given to me. It's not difficult to learn how to be friendly not only to your kitchen, to your body, and also to the planet. Reducing waste is really, really important, especially in these times. See you next time.